What is going on? This is Altone, and today I wanted to come back because last week we actually upgraded or we flashed our ER6 receiver, and today I'm going to show you that the ER6 is actually working, is working properly. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things that happened last week that I thought was rather interesting. So first of all, a couple of things that happened last week, and I'm glad that I did what I did and I didn't go ahead and do the demonstration in last week's video. Part of it is because I was running out of time, just to be honest with you. But the second part of it was that in the process of testing, I was attempting to get the voltage off the receiver through the telemetry off the receiver, and burned out 4 of my servos that are on my model here that I've been using to do some testing with. And so I had to actually go through and put new servos in. I thought I might have burnt out the ESC, but I didn't. It's working now, and in the process of testing, I actually have the other ER6. I actually went ahead and it took seconds basically to go ahead and flash my second ER6 receiver, and it is currently inside my FT tutor that's hanging here, and it's bound up to this radio and it's ready to go. Now, another thing that I did was in order to keep from having to go through all of the configurations, I'm going to show you a little bit of the configuration of what I've done with our model here, but in order to keep from having to go through all of my configurations, I actually took, because I was originally flying my FT tutor with my jumper T18, and I actually went in and copied the model. It's a little interesting, but I went in and copied the model from the jumper T18 into my T16S. Just copied it over into my models folder, and now I have access and I'm able to fly it. I'm going to be checking some of the other settings and whatnot to make sure everything is working properly, and I went through and compared the settings between the two to make sure I didn't lose anything. Also, I have my lights on my SH switch so that I can actually change the lights, and they all work perfectly. So maybe in a future video I'll come back and I'll show you how that ER6 is actually working in that plane. Now, in the process of doing all that, I also copied over my test model from my jumper T18, which was actually bound to a Spectrum AR620 that I have here, and I used that with the Express LRS, went through and reconfigured everything so that this model is actually working the same as it was with my jumper T18. So let's go ahead and jump down to the drop down so you can check out what we got going on here, and I'll show you a few of the screens, and so you can get a good look and view of what I've got going on here. See if we can lower this microphone a little bit. And of course, we have our TX16S here. So let's go ahead and turn this guy on. And like I said, I went through and I did a couple of modifications.
Welcome to HTX. Throttle cut, flaps up, low rate.
So you notice it is saying a whole lot of stuff here, and it's because I went through and played around with the configuration. There's a couple of things that you're going to notice here. One is, let's see if you can see that. One is you have your RX bat, which is going to be your battery power, battery voltage, and the battery here is the actual battery voltage of the two cell battery here in the radio. So it's still at 7.5. It could be charged up. We'll have to do that. I haven't charged it in a little while, but there you go. And that's essentially what the model currently looks like. I actually took a picture and put it in here. I'm going to show you how to do that soon, but in a future video. And I've got a few things set up here. So first of all, we're going to demonstrate the idea that this guy is actually working. It's plugged in here. And so when we plug it in or turn it on, so I'll put a switch here at the top, and it is plugged into this. And we actually have, I have my balance plug plugged in here so that you can see that we have currently on this meter 12.48 volts. So we're going to see what this actually says, how close it is. There possibly could be some calibration that's necessary. And then this is how I have the battery lead connected. I actually now have a crimper and some pins, so I went ahead and crimped a pin onto that lead that we have plugged in, and it is working. Well, I see the pin just came out. That's okay. We'll just plug it back in there. It's just a straight pin, so going right on into here, and Now it should give us, when we turn it on, it should give us battery voltage. And then, of course, we have a receiver, aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder, AETR. And then we have channel 5 currently is still the ARM channel. And then we have my flaps on channel 6, which I actually set up because I had to go in and set that up again so that it was actually on channel 6 instead of channel 5. But at any rate, it's working. So let's go ahead and turn this guy on. Okay, so at some point I'm going to have to do something that have this a sound saying that it's receiving telemetry. So if you look here, we have 2.4, 2.5 volts here on the battery. Let's see if I can make that where you can see it a little bit better. So you see there's 2.4, 2.5 volts on the battery, and we have 2.47 here on the meter. And I don't think you can see that very well. So let's go ahead and see if we can pull this guy off. I've got a long enough cable on here. So we're having or reading 2.47 on the meter. Go ahead and sit this back over here. And it's fluctuating between 2.4, 12.4 and 12.5. So it's 12.47 on the meter, 12.4, 12.5 here on the radio. So that's what we're seeing. There we go. Now that's better. Now you can see it really good. So 12.47 and then 12.4, 12.5. So that's pretty accurate. I'm not going to worry about, I may go in and see if what I can do and see if I can actually make that a little bit closer. But I'm really happy with that. And this is the first time I actually checked to see how accurate that battery was. Next thing we're going to do is going to show you that everything is working. So first of all, we have our throttle lock, our throttle cut on our switch over here, which is set to the SF switches, which I would normally put it because it's a 2-position switch. I have my flaps on SA, or excuse me, SE. So my flaps.
Flaps down. Flaps up.
And I actually have a timer in here, a 1-second timer, so that these flaps are not just jerking into position.
Flaps down. Flaps up.
And you can do that in your mixes when you set up your flaps. And if you have questions about that, at some point I'll try to show you a full breakdown of how I've actually set this up and programmed this. Because once you program your first model, in most cases, as a beginner, you're not going to have a model that has flaps on it. I want to build one that has flaps, so I'm playing around with the flaps function as well, and that's why I wanted to put that into my model here. And as well as landing gear. Eventually, I'm going to put landing gear onto an aircraft. But right now, I just want to be able to work with flaps. If you get the flaps down, adding another function as far as like landing gear is going to be easy. Landing a cargo bay door drop, which I want to do on a plane in the future, that's going to be a little bit easier as well. But we got the flaps done, so that's what we've done. And once you set up your first model, if you just have 4 channels, your throttle, ailerons, elevator, and rudder, you can basically copy that model. Create a new model for every aircraft that you're adding in. So if you're making other phone models like this or like the FT Tutor or whatever, once you set everything up and you connect everything in the same way, your channels on your receiver, connect all your wiring for your servos in the same way, then you can basically copy it over. Now, you're going to want to make some adjustments for like Expo and things of that nature. You want to make adjustments for those things as you do so, because every aircraft flies a little bit differently, but essentially you can just copy it over. Every now and then you're going to want to get, and this is one thing that I've lacked in, get practice in setting up a new model from scratch in your radio so you can kind of keep that muscle memory, so to speak, going so you can remember what you're doing. But I've been copying the same thing. I do the same thing for my drones. I copy one of my previous models over, do some testing, do some tweaking to the settings, and let it go. And that's what I've been doing. So what we have here is we have our ailerons working, elevators working, rudders also working. And then throttle active, throttle's working. So we are good to go. Throttle cuts on, so the throttle's not working here. And I always want to set that for every single one of my models to make sure we're safe, because we have actual props on here. You don't want them spinning up on you. There's a bunch of things that you can play around with and do here, and it's just fantastic. So the other thing is, like I said, we got our flaps done, which I've already showed you. So what we have is rates. So if you look at let's go with the rudder.
Medium rate, high rate, medium rate, low rate.
The rates essentially add or give you adjustments to the travel of your control surfaces. So when I put this guy in normal rate, my rudder's not moving that much. But if I put it in medium rate, it moves just a little bit more. High rate just a little bit more, which gives you a lot more control. And the same thing with my elevator. So it's in high rate now. Medium rate, it adjusted just a little bit. It's very little. You can probably barely see it. In low rate. So it changes my max movement of the control surfaces. Again, as a beginner, not something that you really, really need. For most models, you're going to want to check to see what the travel should be for your ailerons, your elevator, and your rudder to get the best flying experience. So that's pretty much it. You now have had the opportunity to see how easy it is to flash the ER6 with the latest firmware and to get the binding phrase set up. And now you've had the opportunity to see what it actually shows you, or how it works with my radio. And again, I've done some tinkering and done all the setup, so everything on this particular model is functioning the way I want it to function for the most part. I'm going to be doing some more tinkering, and coming very soon, A3 Super 4 Hobby Eagle. This is a light, and this is the full model, and I'm going to be using this in my new airplane that I'm building over here, and I'm going to use either the ER6 or the ER8 with this six-axis gyro. And so I'm going to be sharing with you my experience working with this. And this is going to be the first time I'll be setting up a gyro as well. So if you're a beginner, this is one that's going to, really give you some good information as well. I'm looking forward to this, and hope you will too. So that's it. I hope that you learned something and at least enjoyed the experience of me showing you what I have had going on here. Thank you so much again for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you next week for another fantastic video.